Hey, David Brewster here. I'm started chord playing. This is part 2 of the Chords of Megadeth, and it was over 2 years ago when I put the first episode together. And that was really early on this channel. I didn't have proper lighting. I didn't really have the flow of these chord play lessons together yet. But in that lesson, we looked at riffs from Bad Omen, Wake Up Dead, Foreclosure of a Dream, Hangar 18. But this lesson's going to push even further into some of their music. Megadeth is essential, thrash metal pioneers. They formed in Los Angeles in 1983, shortly after Dave Mustaine was kicked out of Metallica. They've sold over 38 million albums, worldwide. And, definitely it's one of those bands that as soon as I noticed Megadeth, I was already into Metallica, but I thought, wait, these guys are like a little faster, a little darker, a little heavier. And I'm definitely a huge, Megadeth fan. I love Metallica, but I really loved Megadeth. In case you missed the news, it was a couple nights ago, but I posted, the recent Scales and Tails lesson, Marty Friedman's Exotic Scales, in Marty Friedman's official, Facebook group. And a couple hours later, he actually left a comment, and I was blown away. And I shared it on Facebook. I also shared it here on YouTube, and I'm sharing it once again, because I was just completely honored. I thought, wow, that came from Marty, and he watched the video and apparently liked it. So thank you, Marty. You rule. Megadeth's almost become this like guitar farm kind of thing. Dave Mustaine's almost become like another version of Ozzy Osbourne because he's consistently employed, these phenomenal guitarists. Chris Poland, Marty Friedman, Kiko Loureiro, there's a whole bunch, Chris Broderick. So here's an image with some of the guitarists that have worked, with Megadeth, and it's very impressive. So as far as the music in this lesson, I'm going to try to span through a lot of their career, even though I am going to be leaving a lot of things out. They've had 15 albums, and they've been together, like 38 years, and they've had 7 different guitarists in that time. So there's a lot of music, a lot of material. But we're going to hit some early stuff and some more recent stuff too, like from Dystopia. So here we go. With the opening, that's the title track from Megadeth's first album, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. And it's this ferocious, freight train of riffs, or a freight train of consequences, I guess. But something like this. So it starts off with these kind of dragging slides, with the C-sharp 5, the C5, the B5, like that. Very distinctly, slid off after you hit those chords. And then you're basically lifting up the root on that B5 and then hitting B5 like that. And then go to C-sharp 5 right there. And then you've got this obnoxious, thrash riff. So really slow, after those chord hits, you're doing this. So it's, so you're going to grab, a single C-sharp right there. And then it's basically 12 notes descending all the way down to that low E string, like this. And I've seen this written out or transcribed some different ways, but that's the way that seems to make the most sense to me. Kind of doing that shift on the D. Because it's chromatic based, and you're doing this just weird hybrid of all these different notes. But really slow, you can kind of hear there's a groove to it, like this. So after that power chord, and then you do that big descending, kind of 12-note run. 13 if you count that first C sharp right there. Then you're doing this kind of back and forth shift slide on that F sharp and G. And then you want to bang, hit that B and go right back into C sharp and do it again. So and then do all that again, do the shift sliding and then end on E or E5 right there. And do it again. Cool riff, and it's really aggressive, and it just has this hypnotic kind of sound because you're hearing those notes cruise down so low, and it's just that constant barrage, but really cool. The next example comes from the song The Conjuring, which is from P. Cell's album, and it's about 3 minutes into the song, so you have to be patient, but somewhere around 255 or 256 you're going to hear this riff. Riff too. So it's basically based around power chords, but there's a little move in here that's kind of a signature, trademark from Dave Mustaine. You can find this in other Megadeth songs. But it starts with that E power chord, and then you're moving down B flat, A to G, like that. And then you're going to basically hit E to B flat right there. And then go back and do that first part again. And you're doing so right there, that B flat to A, and then this is the trademark I was talking about a second ago. So you're technically playing a little piece of G major. You're going to slide that to A major and back, and you have this weird kind of rub right there, which those two major chords kind of hit, briefly and slid. It sounds really weird, in the middle of this riff, because technically you wouldn't think of, major chords sounding dark, but in the middle of this riff, they do sound dark, like that. And then after that little slide with that G and A, partial chord, then just walk back down B flat, A to G right there. B flat 5, A5, G5. Thing over again. So for another example of these hidden major chords in the middle of Megadeth's riffs, check out the song Holy Wars from Rust in Peace, and you'll find this. Right there, you're basically moshing your way through that G and F sharp, and you're also opening up that low E string like that. Right? So it's really kind of a typical, chord slid power chord move right there. And then you've got that really rapid, picked single note riff after that. So slowly. Doing this. Right? And then right there you're going to hear kind of a partial, G major move back and forth to that partial F major or F sharp major. So it's kind of a variation of what we saw in the previous example in the Conjuring, but now we're doing this. And then go back to that single note riff. Twist in those chords. That's really cool. Next up is one of my favorite Megadeth songs. This is My Life from Countdown to Extinction, and it's something like this. Really cool. So basically it starts with this B5 with the volume rolled off, and then you swell your volume on like that. And then you hear these crushing power chords, you know, B flat 5 to A5 to G. And then A flat, G5 to F. Like that. Hear a slid E5 and just bang on that low E open. And do it again. And then right here you hear this kind of twisting chord progression, or implied chord progression. And this pops up a lot in Megadeth's music. So I'm thinking Dave Mustaine must be a huge James Bond fan, because I hear, you know, like this kind of James Bond, you know, kind of sound. It pops up in a lot of Megadeth's music, and I'm not calling out Dave Mustaine, but that does sound like James Bond kind of isms in some of their songs, like this. Right? So it's not exactly like James Bond, but that little kind of secret agent twist right there. So right there it's going to start with this kind of partial E5. It's kind of doing that hammer on, you know, from the open D to the E note right there on the D string. And then you hear it shift to augmented right there. And then right there it's basically E6. And then you're going to hear this, which that's kind of like E7 sus2 implied. And then E major 7 sus2. Right there, I love that little twist in that progression. And right there you're going to move up to this E5. And then E augmented again right there. And this is really unusual. So that's going to be E sus2 sharp 11. We're basically playing that against that low E. Then you hear the single note riff. Next up is the song Go to Hell, which you can find on the Megadeth compilation Hidden Treasures, and it's also on the soundtrack to Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. This is really cool, like this. like that. So it starts and opens with this, very familiar E minor add 9 right there. Our old buddy E minor add 9. So we got that. And then you're kind of hitting like the C flat 5, kind of, but it's picked through, so it's implied. Like that. And then this is very unusual right there. Something like that. So that's an E minor 6/9. And then you're going to go back to that kind of partial, C flat 5, kind of like that. Start it again. And then right here, this is very unusual. So it's like that. Really weird chord. But in the middle of this progression, that sounds amazing. So that's going to be what, an E minor, F sharp minor flat 9. Very weird. The flat 9's that open G right there too. And then you hear, and it starts all over. So really slow, that progression. And then right there. And you got to really watch that F sharp minor flat 9, because it just seems to come out of nowhere. And then the next riff, this is really basic, but it kind of proves, because we're in standard tuning, and this proves you can be really heavy and evil in standard tuning. You don't need 7 or 8 strings, or you don't need to have floppy strings tuned on your guitar. You can just do it in standard like that. Killer riff. The last example here is from the song Conquer or Die, and this is from the album Dystopia with Kiko Loureiro on guitar, and Kiko's a monster. And on the album version, the song's actually tuned down a whole step. But I'm just feeling kind of lazy. I'm just going to demonstrate this and show it in standard tuning. But keep in mind, if you want to play along with the album, you have to tune down a whole step, the entire guitar. But this is really cool, something like this. That. So you're actually missing the second guitar part too, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But I believe this is Kiko's part, and he's doing this. It's all implied chords, and then occasionally he's actually playing some chords in there, or arpeggiating through them. But it opens with this kind of implied E minor, melody. And then right there, you're going to basically descend and kind of palm mute, and that's an F sharp 7. That. And then move that down a half step, and that's F major 7, and do the same thing. Really crafty. And then do that first thing again in E minor. And then right there, you're going to do this. Really bizarre. So that's going to feel kind of like a C flat 5 or a C6 flat 5. Kind of, it's implied. And that's going to feel like B7 right there. So that first part. And then do that first part again. Right here, it's going to start with this B major, and then this is basically what, A6. So going from this, and then right there, you're basically moving to this G6, and then F sharp minor 6, which is really cool I love that kind of progression there at the end. A heavy classical influence right there for sure. The second guitar, which I believe is Dave Mustaine, he's pounding this E5 power chord and then joins Kiko, you know, like for certain parts of those riffs, like this. Now I'm going to use the TC Electronic Ditto looper to kind of recreate both guitar parts at the same time. So I'm going to play Kiko's, and then the looper is going to play Dave Mustaine's part, but something like this. Going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with part 2 of the Chords of Megadeth. And I've been a Megadeth fan and following this band since I was in high school. And I remember, you know, staying up late watching Headbangers Ball with my sister, and we would catch these music videos, you know, for Peace Sells or Wake Up Dead and some of this stuff. And then it just continued from there. And by the time Marty joined the band, I was obsessed. I was like, okay, you brought in Marty Friedman, are you serious? You know, I'm definitely a fan. And there's just something about, you know, the musicians that have worked with Megadeth, whether it's, you know, drummers or guitarists or whatever. And Dave Mustaine himself, you know, he's definitely kind of a metal guitar architect, you know, where you can definitely hear certain things that he does with riffs and rhythms and chord progressions. Definitely very distinct, you know, lead style. You can almost always tell, like, hey, I think that's Dave Mustaine, because you can hear it, you know. And I like that, where, you know, he's definitely pushed himself. I think Dave definitely pushed himself hardest, you know, working with Marty Friedman. And I also think that Kiko has been pushing him too, like to practice and, you know, kind of improve some things. So you can hear that. And I really like the fact, and I respect Dave Mustaine for that, where he has consistently pushed himself musically, artistically, personally, and everything the entire time. So I really respect that. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content material. Thank you.